I'm going to share with you, this is what I'm going to actually draw out, okay? So I'm not going to draw all of this out, but we're going to talk about the majority of this and the critical parts of this. This is called the web of physiologic dysfunction, okay? So if we put the middle here, if we said this is optimal health, okay, and optimal weight, okay, because those two things are tied together. And by the way, it's not the same for every person. You know, there are different body styles. You can't compare everybody and expect everybody to be the same. Some people are going to be bulkier than other people. Some people are going to be thin just by their particular genetic makeup. Some are going to be a little bit heavier. But we all have a range that we're supposed to be in. And I'm going to show you in a minute, most of us are not in that range. Yes, sir?
I just want to hear you say that again so I feel better.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, when I actually give you the range, you won't feel as good as you do right now, okay? Because no matter what our genes are, okay, there's still a range that a healthy range that we should be in, okay? And unfortunately, right now in America, over 30% of the people are severely out of that range. And I mean what's called obese, where they've got 30% body fat or more than 30 pounds overweight, okay? And so this optimal health, what's going to affect this? What's going to decrease this? Well, let's look at the three big things. What's going to cause us? These are the three that are going to affect your weight the most in the largest amount of the population. These are the, if I took a survey of 100 people in my practice that are carrying more weight than they should, most of them would have one of these three things, at least. Okay? And so we kind of talked on this one a little bit already, but let's talk about thyroid. Why is thyroid involved with weight gain? What does thyroid do for you?
Metabolism.
Metabolism. You're exactly right. Thyroid hormone has to enter into the cell to make the cell work, okay? So it brings the energy of the cell up. The cell cannot go. It's like the spark plug to an engine, okay? And now here's the thing. The thyroid actually makes two major hormones. Do y'all know what they are?
TH4 and
T3. T3 and T4. You're exactly right. Now, 93% of the hormone that's made by the thyroid is T4. 7% is T3. Do you know which one of those is active? You're probably figuring it's not T4, right?
Right.
It's T3. Now, why is that important? That means that, Russell, we've got to get that T4 to T3 before it can help our cells. Okay? So for it to enter into the actual nucleus of the cell and for the cell to be able to fire and metabolize and you have good energy and good function of that cell, it's got to get from T4 to T3. And did you know that doesn't happen at the thyroid? That happens 60% at the liver, 20% at the gut, and 20% doesn't happen at all. Okay? So, what I'm trying to tell you is sometimes you've got thyroid problems, but it might be related to something else. And unfortunately, most of the time, the proper testing hasn't been done to evaluate where your problem's actually coming from. The second one. This is a monster boulder. If you drop this one in your backpack, you are in trouble. I'm going to write this out so we won't have any confusion about what this is, okay, Miss Susan? Blood sugar. You got blood sugar problems? You're going to have a difficult time managing your weight. And you're going to have a difficult time maintaining good health. And it's not just diabetes, by the way. What's the normal lab ranges for blood sugar? Glucose levels? 85 to 99. 85 to 99. That's normal. That's optimal. If it's outside that, if it's lower than that, you're hypoglycemic state or reactive hypoglycemic. If it's above that, you're insulin resistant. And if it gets above 126, then you're diabetes, right? Okay? So, blood sugar is huge. Blood sugar causes a lot of other problems. We'll come back to that. But let's get to the third one, the big one here, okay, that goes along with that, which we mentioned just a minute ago, is our gut. Okay? And let's say leaky gut syndrome. Okay? What does leaky gut syndrome mean? Does anybody know? Kind of get an idea maybe? It's also called intestinal permeability.
It means it leaks out.
It leaks out. And guess where it leaks out to? Where does it leak?
Your bloodstream.
Your bloodstream. You're 100% right, because guess what? Your intestines, by the way, are supposed to leak. Y'all did know that, right? How do you think you're going to get the nutrients from your food into your bloodstream to get to your cells so that you can feed them? But guess what? It's only supposed to let out the nutrients. In other words, once the food's completely digested, once it's broken down into minerals and vitamins and amino acids and things like that, then it can pass through. When it's letting, okay, so look at it like this. This is a protein. Let's say this is that gluten protein, okay? It's one of the biggest, one of the hardest to digest. That's why it's a problem for a lot of people. Okay, so then when we break a protein down, we get what's called a peptide. So now it's a little smaller, okay, but still big. Then we break it down to an amino acid. Now when we get it down to amino acid, this is supposed to pass through the gut and go into the blood. If we got this or this passing through, guess what we learned a while ago? It goes into the bloodstream. Your system that God gave you to protect you, called your immune system, sees this and said, hey, you're not supposed to be here. You don't look normal. We've never seen you before. We're going to attack you, and we're going to get rid of you. And then guess what happens if that gluten protein comes in the bloodstream again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day? Then you know what happens? Your immune system says, look, we told you already, you're a bad person, you're not supposed to be here. We're going to put a flag on you now so that every time we see you, we're not going to send one guy to take care of you. We're going to send an army. And that's called an antibody, and this is when you now have a food sensitivity. Okay? Now, food sensitivities go right up underneath this, okay? So now we're starting to talk about some other things that are also involved. Food sensitivities are a major, major problem why people can't lose weight. Because food sensitivities lead to another problem, which is called inflammation. Now, the reason I didn't put this as one of the essentials, because every person that's overweight has this. Every person has it. But the reason is, it's really not the foundational problem. There's something already going on that's causing this. But it's absolutely involved in your inability to lose weight. Until you get your inflammation down, you cannot lose weight. Here's the bad news. Fat cells are inflammatory. Here's what else we learned. Guess what? Inflammation, and one other thing I'm fixing to cover, are big. They're actually saying now, finally the medics are actually saying, the medical doctors are actually saying, you know, maybe it's not so much cholesterol that's causing all these heart problems, but inflammation. You see? So they're even starting to kind of come around to what we've been saying now for about 20 years. Is like, cholesterol's just there taking care of doing what it's doing, trying to heal the damage that was caused from inflammation. Okay? So, the next thing that goes along with this leaky gut is chronic infections. Okay? Man, these are rampant, and people don't think about this because we've been taught that, oh, infections, you got symptoms. You got like a fever, you know, you got swelling or something like that. Not with a chronic infection. That means it's going on all the time, but your body it's keeping in check. In other words, the infection is not overcoming your immune system in your body, but your body's also not overcoming it. They're getting up every morning and warring. You understand, there's a battle going on every day. Guess what happens to your immune system after a while on that? It gets weak, it gets worn out, it gets fatigued. And this is where a lot of times you'll see people's white blood cells begin to dip low on their lab, because now they're starting to use up so many white blood cells fighting these chronic infections. And this is a major problem that most people don't realize. One of the most common ones is H. pylori. You ever heard of H. pylori? Gut infection, okay, but it can get to anywhere in the body. After it starts in the stomach, it can actually go to any other tissue, and it can even embed itself in the thyroid gland, and it can affect your thyroid. And also, it can cause an immune system attack in your thyroid, which is called Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid. So now that we're on this, let's go ahead and talk about the next one, which is autoimmunity. So autoimmune conditions absolutely cause inflammation and a weakened immune system, and it prevents you from being able to lose weight until that autoimmune condition is under control. You understand? Once you have an autoimmune attack, or let me just explain this. Do y'all know what I'm talking about when I say an autoimmune condition? Your immune system is attacking your own tissue, okay? It starts off with just an autoimmune attack. Then you develop an autoimmune condition, and then you develop an autoimmune disease. And it's not a disease until it's damaged enough of the tissue in a particular area that it can't do its job. Take, for instance, like Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid problem, okay? You can have an autoimmune attack, and you can see that in the labs, but the thyroid can still be working normally. But if you don't stop this, before you know it, then you have an autoimmune condition. That's where you actually now start having symptoms, but you haven't crossed the line to where now you actually, your lab is off enough that they say you have an autoimmune disease. You see? So it's a progression, all right? But it needs to be stopped, and anywhere along the way, it's going to prevent you from being healthy, and it's going to prevent you from being able to lose weight. And so then, another one we talked about indirectly is liver. Liver, of course, is not only a detoxifier, and fat cells, by the way, also store fat. Fat cells also store toxins, okay? And so when you do start losing weight, you have to have good liver function to be able to detoxify the body. Let's see. What else? Inflammation. Okay, one more tied to thyroid. Let's go two more. Adrenals. We talked about energy, right? Adrenal function, okay, is going to affect, these two are going to go hand in hand. Adrenal function and thyroid are going to go hand in hand, okay? And then lastly, one more I want to talk to you about because it's tied to energy also, is mitochondrial function. Y'all know what the mitochondria are? Okay, mitochondria are an organelle. That means it's an organ of a cell. Okay, so cells they're not just one thing. They have a nucleus, they have a cell wall, they have different things in there. Okay, and one of the things they have is called mitochondria. The mitochondria is the energy pack of the cell. Mitochondria produces what's called ATP. ATP is what your cells use for energy. If your mitochondria begin to shut down, you will not have good energy. And so this is an issue that again begins to cause fatigue, and then you got low metabolism, then you gain weight. That's not all. I could have went a lot further, okay? I mean, I'm just kind of hitting the major foundational things. There's a lot of little legs off of these things that we could go into, but this gives you enough to know that it's not as simple as just changing my diet and eating less calories. It doesn't always work. You understand what I'm saying? Because there may be something else going on, okay? And there's 100 different diets out there on the internet, and every one of those diets has worked for somebody, Anita, okay? But every one of those diets didn't work for somebody else, and usually a whole lot more people it didn't work for. And this is why. Because not everybody has the same problem, okay? So, with that said, let's talk about the next thing, all right? Just for instance, so you get an idea, I know y'all know that this is a big issue in America, and I know it's a personal issue, and that's most important, but this is a stat from back in 1997, and it shows here most of the country was blue then, which means we had between 15 and 20% of people that were over 30 pounds overweight for a 5'4" person, or over 30% body fat, okay? That's a pretty large number, in my opinion, 1997. Now, these ones over here that are this tan, these are over 20%. Okay? Now, look what happened 4 years later. Whoa. We turned tan, didn't we? And then we had to come up with a new grading scale. Now we've got one state, Mississippi, with over 25%. This was in 2001. Now, look what happened here in 2009. Now everybody's red almost, okay? And we've got to come up with an even different color now. Dark red, that's over 30% of the people in that state are over 30% body fat. This is an epidemic problem, as we know, and there's multiple reasons why. Not just the stuff we talked about there as far as metabolic function, but our diet, the SAD diet. You know what the SAD diet is, right?
Standard American diet.
Absolutely, standard American diet. Very sad, by the way. Okay, Lifestyles are a factor, okay? We'll talk more about that in a second. Hormones and mindset and culture, a big one, okay? And marketing and everything else, you know, that tells you how much you need this food that's not good for you and stuff like that. Now here's a question. Do you believe that you're overweight because you're unhealthy, or are you unhealthy because you're overweight? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to tell you, you actually start gaining weight when you become unhealthy. So you're unhealthy first. Now, your health will get worse as your weight goes up, but the health is already going down when your weight starts to go up, okay? And so whether you actually have a symptom yet, it's still a problem. You still don't have optimal function. And many times you go to the doc and they run your labs, and this is what they say, nothing's wrong with you, but guess what? You're like, well, I don't feel like nothing's wrong with me. Right. But that's, again, because remember, docs are looking at, they're looking for diseases, and they're looking at lab ranges on the blood, which means they're looking at averages of everybody that goes in the lab. And you already know that everybody goes in the lab is not healthy. So you've already got a wide range, okay, and that's not a healthy range. And so you can be outside the healthy range, which are functional ranges, which is what we use, and you still don't have a disease, but you got a lot of symptoms. You see, and that's commonly happens. So let's look at this. For all chronic health conditions have some common threads, the things that we talked about. Some of these we talked about, some of these we haven't even talked about yet. But this weight loss resistance syndrome is huge, but then look, we got all these other things that have some similar threads. So a lot of times you got this, but then you got a few of these other things over here on this list also going on. And they all tie back into some of these foundational things like the autoimmunity, anemias. Why do anemias affect your weight, number one, and your health overall? What is an anemia? When you have an anemia, what do you have a problem with?
Red blood cells.
Red blood cells? And what is that? And what do red blood cells do? Carry oxygen. So what do you not have enough of? Oxygen. You don't have enough oxygen for your cells. Your cells got to have oxygen. Okay, so anemias affect everything. And by the way, if you got an anemia, what's the first thing you should be thinking? What do you think?
Need iron.
Maybe, but why? I picked on you because it goes back to what you were talking about earlier.
Because your body's lacking it?
Yeah, but why? Because most people, that is possible. Some people don't eat meat. And that's a big problem. But I always ask them that when I see an anemia. I say, well, it's one of three problems here. You either don't eat meat, and they're like, oh no, I eat meat, okay? Or you don't absorb it. And I was going back to the gut. That's what I was headed toward, okay? Because you mentioned that. If you got anemias, you got a gut problem most of the time. Or you've got one of these inflammations or autoimmunities or infections where now the body's getting enough iron, but it's hiding it because iron will feed those three things right there. And your body's created intelligent, and it won't purposely throw gasoline on the fire. You see, it'd rather struggle with an anemia for a little while than it would to let this infection get fed or let this inflammation ramp up even higher. Okay?
How does sleep apnea affect that?
Sleep apnea can decrease oxygen, obviously. Yeah, so that can be a big problem too. So anemia is not the only reason why you have low oxygen. Sometimes it can be neurologic because you got you've got a imbalance of your autonomic nervous system. Sometimes it can be a sleep issue. So, but blood sugar we already talked about, liver, and this here, fatty acid metabolism. Did you know when your gut starts getting bad, this is one of the first things you have trouble with, and especially if you got a gallbladder or a liver issue, the liver and gallbladder work together to digest fats. If you can't digest fats properly, you're going to have problems because every cell in your body has a membrane around it that's made of fats. And so if you lose healthy fats, you're going to have unhealthy cells. And you thought fats were bad, by the way, didn't you? We've been in this fad for now 30 or 40 years where they've been saying low fat, low fat, low fat. And even they're finally starting to come around on that, these medical authorities, and saying, well, there's good and bad fat. You need tons of fat. By the way, you can lose a lot of weight eating fat, okay? But you got to eat the right kind of fat, okay?
I was watching a thing the other day about high fructose corn syrup, And since they're having a hard time making that the villain
Yeah.
that it is, they decided to blame fats because nobody's particularly concerned about fats, and that sounds like something we ought to fix.
Well, yeah, fats are easy to blame. You know, it just sounds bad anyway. You call it fats, it's like,
They don't have an advocate.
exactly. They don't. Yeah, nobody's advocating for them. But the fact is, yeah, they even try to pass off. It's made from corn, so corn syrup is supposed to be good, right? It's not. Yeah, phooey. There's a whole lot of things we need to talk about sugar, but I promise you it's going to take way too long for tonight. But this, the sweeter they make it, the worse it is, and the more abnormal it is for your body. You know, our bodies are used to getting sweet things from fruit. Fruit used to be sweet to us until we got all these other things. And now we lose our taste for sweet, okay? So, anybody, you ever get frustrated yet? This is the problem. So it's like, okay, we got all these things, okay? How do we know? It is frustrating.
Question about cane sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Unprocessed cane sugar apparently is high in chromium, which you have to have to metabolize sugar.
Mm-hmm. It's better, one of the better options, for sure,
Yeah,
okay?
but that's not something you should consume a lot of.
No, of course not. But we do have a sweet tooth, and there's nothing wrong with having some sweets, okay? The problem is, like I said, our taste for sweets has been so messed up that now it takes so much to satisfy us. And then we get, and plus, then once you start gaining weight and you increase fat cells, then you have more desire for sweets and more desire for unhealthy foods. And by the way, taste, there's a good thing. Neurologically, taste is an acquired sense. So what that means is you can change your taste in about 3 weeks. And I've seen it happen in my own self. And guess what you crave? You crave what you give yourself. You give yourself something different for 3 solid weeks consistently, and you'll begin to change your cravings. That's why I always tell people, when you're looking to change your diet and change your lifestyle, focus on putting good things into your diet first. Because then you'll begin to crave more of those, and then you won't feel like you've created a vacuum when you're trying to get things out. Now, some people, honestly, are at a certain point where they just can't do that because they need to be more aggressive about it. But if you're looking at just changing your lifestyle, that's a good way to do it. So, what's different about what we do? Okay, and what I'm going to recommend to you tonight. Well, number one, this is all you. If you even get this these days, as far as blood test, you're doing pretty good, to be honest with you. And second of all, they're going to still look at these with the wrong numbers. Okay. You need a complete thyroid panel to know if your thyroid's working. That includes at least 6 tests instead of the 1 or 2 that you typically get in a medical setting, okay? You're going to need to know some inflammatory panels. These are inflammatory markers: vitamin D, homocysteine, and C-reactive protein. And of course, you need to know about autoimmunities. The most common autoimmunity in America is Hashimoto's. There's over at least 24 million diagnosed Hashimoto's cases. I promise you there's at least probably double that are not diagnosed, at least. It's a major problem.
Could you define Hashimoto's, please?
Hashimoto's is an autoimmune thyroid condition, where you have an attack to one of 2 different enzymes in the process of the thyroid. Okay, TPO or TBG. Okay, these are 2 different antibodies, and they're enzymes that are responsible for making those hormones we talked about. So what happens is then you're for whatever reason, whether it be one of these things over here that's got your immune system dysregulated, now your immune system has gotten excited and began to now attack that particular enzyme, either because there's an infection trying to hide in there and it's trying to get to the infection, or maybe there's some other thing that's got it dysregulated to the point where it's now attacking that. And so now you get these nodules a lot of times, and your doc says, oh yeah, we're watching these, okay, but that's because of the attack, and they can go up and down. Okay, and by the way, your symptoms can go up and down. So sometimes you got low thyroid symptoms, your brain fog, you're constipated, you're gaining weight, your hair's falling out, and then all of a sudden, one night you can't sleep, your heart's racing, you feel jittery, and you're anxious, and it's on a roller coaster. Because when it attacks and it dumps a bunch of thyroid, you have hyperthyroid symptoms, and then most of the time you're low thyroid symptoms, then you're hyper, and then you're low, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And it's an immune system problem, not a thyroid problem. You understand? But there's something driving the immune system out of function. Now, these are standard tests that we do with everybody. These are tests that I do depending on if I need more information. Okay, so sometimes hormones are a big issue. Okay, sometimes food sensitivity panels need to be done. Infections can be, we talked about that. Adrenals. So there's different testing we can do if we need more information. Bottom line is, we got to know what the cause is so we can get to the solution. That's the bottom line. And so once we get all the pieces of the puzzle, we begin to put them back together, and then guess what? We re-examine and retest, and I'll talk to you about how we do some of that in just a minute, until we get things back in balance, okay? So then once you get things back in balance, you get really better health and better function. So basically investigating like you would a crime scene, okay? Evaluate the crime scene, gather the clues, and then solve the case. So, talked about this, get tested, find the problem, correct it. Now I want to talk to you personally about this. Changes. You know what I say about change? Change is easy. Y'all probably disagree with me. Actually, I think it was you. Somebody told me the other day, said, yeah, change is easy, just making up my mind is the hard part. And that's what I say. That's exactly what I say. It's thinking about change that's hard. Once you got your mind made up, it just is what it is. I mean, I'll tell you the honest truth. Let's see, it's how many years ago now? Maybe 6 years ago, more, maybe 6. I found out I had gluten sensitivity. I went off gluten and dairy. It wasn't hard. I just did it. I didn't think about it a long time. I just did it, okay? So I ran the test. They said I had it. I said, okay, well, I don't eat that anymore. And guess what? I've been a lot better for it. I've been blessed in good health all my life. And I was telling somebody today, I thank God, and I give God the glory for this. I've not missed a day of work in 23 years. And but you know what? I've had less days when I wasn't 100% since I went off some of these food sensitivity issues. It's helped me. It made me better. So the bottom line is, change is easy, but you're going to have to change to get something different. Bottom line. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. Okay? I think it's a sign of insanity, right? If you expect something different doing the same thing. So we don't want that for sure. So here's what I recommend to you, okay? This is the way we handle all of our cases, but we handle any weight loss case like this. First of all, 2 visits. First visit, we're going to have a full consultation, a physical exam, including a neurologic exam, and then we're going to either review your blood work you already have or recommend new blood work if you don't have any done in the last 6 months or so, okay? But I like to get a start somewhere. Even sometimes if it's a year old, I'll take it and review it and study it so I get a pattern. Because patterns typically don't change. Now they get worse, but in other words, they're the same pattern. Okay? And so that's what we do on the first visit. Then on the second visit, and by the way, there's one other thing too that we do, and I'll go over that. We review the questionnaires, and this involves the YKO Score that we're going to give you, that you're going to do. It also involves a metabolic assessment form and some neurologic assessment forms. So basically it's a questionnaires about how all these organs and systems are working. So I start getting a direction. This says you've got a problem here. Maybe your labs say you got a problem here. I'm pretty sure you got a problem here. And then we know what we need to be addressing, okay? So we also tell you if you're a candidate for our care, okay? And we do not accept everyone. There's 2 types of people right up front I don't accept. Number 1 is the one I don't think I can help. And number 2, the one that won't help themselves. I don't accept that. Because it's a lot of work on us, and we work very hard to help our patients, and I can't do your part for you. That's the other bad news I forgot to tell you up front. I'm afraid if I tell you up front, y'all just left, so save it till the end. Bottom line is, yeah, it's going to take work, and it's going to take time to change things, okay? So this is the YKO Score. This right here is a fantastic thing to do. We'll actually give you this as part of your program here today, and just for being here. And we'll be glad to go over that with you as well. That's a gift from us, okay? So normally $75. It takes you about 30 minutes to do it. You can do it online. But again, it's very intensive. And I'll get that back personally to my computer here. I'll be able to evaluate it and be able to sit down and go over that with you. But if you decide you want to work with us here in the office, this is my rules, okay? Number 1, you got to be willing to make lifestyle changes. Don't come to me and think that I'm going to do everything for you, or you don't have to change anything. It's not going to work. Number two, you already heard me up front. You got to say I'm responsible, okay? Nobody else is going to help you, and your insurance company's not responsible, and President Obama's not responsible, and nobody else is responsible, okay? So I would like to blame it on some people, including our leadership, but I can't. I mean, ultimately, nobody's stopping me from being healthier. It's kind of like Zig Ziglar said. He said for most of his life, he chose to weigh over 200 pounds, and he was about 60 pounds overweight. And he said, I chose that because he said nobody ever held me down and forced food into my mouth. You know what I'm saying? So it was a choice to some extent, right? And now you got to be willing to pay for it, because this stuff is not covered by insurance. Bottom line. I mean, insurance, I've never seen a car insurance that covered changing your oil. I've never seen a health insurance cover a gym membership. I've never seen a home insurance cover you getting your eaves cleaned, you know what I'm saying, and painting your house and stuff like that. It don't cover wellness stuff. Now, if you end up getting sick enough, you end up in the hospital, well, you'll be, thank God you had your insurance, okay? But it's not going to cover things to make you healthier. It's going to cover things to help you when you're really sick. It's crisis care. It's really not health care. Understand the difference. And so, but our typical programs, now this is for an intensive 3 to 6 month program with me telling you exactly what you need to be doing on diet, what you need to be doing for nutritional support, what kind of lifestyle changes you need to make for 3 to 6 months. And typically I see you a couple times a month on that, okay? And it has to be specific to each person. There's a little bit different variation for each person typically, and different hierarchies. In other words, if we're going to fix some of these and really get you to lose weight, and I'll give you an example. Okay, I had a woman in my office today. I actually recorded a video. I don't know if we got that video. I don't know if you got it yet. It was emailed to you this morning. But that's fine. Put it on Facebook. You guys get on our Facebook page. You'll see it. But basically, Christy said, please get on Facebook. Join, like our Facebook page, please. If you got Facebook, get on there. Make Christy happy. She told me she's lost 13 pounds, okay, since she's been seeing me. Now, that wasn't why she came to see me, and that wasn't a really big issue for her, but she's happy about it, and she actually lost 8 of those pounds the very first week when I told her exactly what diet to get on, which was shocking to me, okay, that she had lost that just immediately. Now, she'll tell you in the testimony, she's feeling a lot better and a whole bunch of other things, but I thought, and by the way, she said she never starved herself. She was never hungry. And she said, now I tried all kinds of other diets before, and I never lost more than a pound or 2. That's exactly what she told me on the testimony. And she said I was always starving. I was always hungry. That's not right. You see, that's not the way it works. You know that. You've tried that before, and it just doesn't work that way. Okay? So, you are going to have to pay for it, bottom line. And here's my offer if you want to get started. Okay? The first 2 visits, I usually charge $285, including everything we talked about on the first 2 visits, including the lab review. I'm doing it tonight. If you want to get an appointment, I've got 6 appointments available for this. Everybody gets the YKO pass. Everybody gets to do the YKO. I'll personally have me or my staff member will go over that with you. No matter what, that's my gift for you being here. If you want to go further with us and you want me to help you with this situation, getting things back into order, then I'll discount the first visit just to see if we can help and to see if you want to work with us or not. Okay? $49, that's it, okay? You're also going to get a DVD. On the DVD, I'm going to go into some of the things that we went over tonight and some other things that's from a previous workshop that I did that was a little bit different than tonight, okay? Now, I'm throwing you a life preserver, okay? That's the bottom line. Tonight, you get an opportunity to take responsibility, okay?